ज्योति स्टेनो टाइपिंग कॉलेज में आप सभी का स्वागत है बच्चों। कैसे हैं आप सभी? उम्मीद करता हूँ अच्छे होंगे। जिन बच्चों का इंग्लिश का 100 WPM डिक्टेशन का किसी भी गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट में टेस्ट है या उससे प्लस 120 तक का टेस्ट है, तो ये डिक्टेशन उनके लिए इम्पॉर्टेंट है। इस डिक्टेशन को पहले आप लिखिए, फिर हमारी वेबसाइट है jyotistenotypingcollege.com, इस पर जाकर के आप इसे टाइप भी कर सकते हैं। इसका मंथली सब्सक्रिप्शन आपको लेना पड़ेगा, उसकी फ़ीस मात्र 500 रुपये है। तो अब मैं पढ़ने जा रहा हूँ SSC 100 WPM डिक्टेशन, जैसे नाम रखा गया है इसका, मैं उसमें जाओगे तो, और डिक्टेशन नंबर है 32। डिक्टेशन स्टार्ट आफ्टर 5 सेकेंड। Now, sir, it is said sometimes that young people do not have much experience. I can understand that. If we judge at merely from the point of view of time one has served on the bench to some extent, that experience would be lacking in the case of a young person immediately recruited from the bar. But then he will bring in other things which may be lacking in the older men. The whole thing should be so developed that it becomes mutually complementary. A young person will have more courage and he will have more initiative in the matter, because a judge of that kind would like to excel not through age nor by putting in a greater period of service, but by making certain positive creative contribution to the development of the entire system of law. Therefore, it is very essential that young people are recruited, and I think almost in every high court bar we can get some young people who can discharge the responsibilities and who can be safely entrusted with the discharge of this responsibility. The government should seriously consider as to why we should keep stuck up to the old system or arrangement in this matter when we can try it. I do not think it is a risk. If there is a risk, I would suggest that how things work. We can give you this kind of approach if it is found unsatisfactory. Then, sir, many things have been said about the causes in arrears and so on. Cases will accumulated before the Supreme Court. Why? Because growingly there will be conflict between the propertied class and those classes which do not have properly or have very little property. The vested interests are bound to come up against residence and position on the part of the have-nots and the underdog in society. If we at all mean to advance in our national remaking, then this will, under the present system of law, give rise to a whole number of litigation. And I am not surprised that the litigation is increasing, having seen how whenever a thing goes against the employer in an industrial dispute or a tribunal, the boss class rushes to the Supreme Court and appoints important lawyers. Some of them are now, of course, in political parties. Sir, I can tell you that the number of cases is 2500 or so. I do not see any possibility of this number of decreasing for two reasons. The vested interests will more and more come to the Supreme Court under Article 136, and sometimes by invoking the fundamental rights to challenge even the progressive legislations of the government and the progressive decisions of the tribunals. Did we not see how, when certain laws were passed, they went to the Supreme Court to challenge the actions of the government because to some extent they affected the interests of upper classes? Sir, when I read the bill and the statement of objects and reasons, I thought that it was a most non-controversial matter. The work in the Supreme Court had increased, and the Honorable Chief Justice of India wanted an increase in the number of judges, and I thought that the government had in right time responded to that request of the Honorable Chief Justice of India. We know that in certain high courts there are huge arrears and how to wipe off those areas has been a problem for the government. We also know that recently the vacations in the high courts have been reduced in order to bring down the areas, and all other steps are being taken to that end. That justice delayed is justice denied cannot be questioned by anybody. In the High Court of Allahabad, I know that there are a number of first appeals which have been pending for the last at least 8 or 9 years. They have not come up for hearing still. So if the Honorable Chief Justice have moved the government long before the work in the Supreme Court falls into heavy arrears, I think he deserves our thanks for that. I thought that the bill would have a quick passage in this House. I was surprised at the speech of my friend opposite. I think the honorable member was trying to sit in judgment over the decisions of the Supreme Court. He quoted 3 cases. One of them related to a person probably from Hyderabad, if I am not mistaken, whose case was first considered by a bench of 2 judges in the High Court. One of the judges was of the opinion that he was guilty, but the other judge did not agree. Therefore, the case had to be referred to a third judge for his opinion, and the third judge agreed with the finding of guilt. Therefore, the order of the court was that his appeal was dismissed. He came in appeal to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court allowed his appeal and acquitted him. That was all that was put before this House. It was a case in which at least one of the 3 judges of the High Court was of opinion that the person was not guilty, even if there had been a concurrent finding of guilt by both the judges who heard the appeal in the High Court is acquitted by the Supreme Court. I find nothing surprising in it, and I do not think there was any material for the honorable member to mention the case. He then referred to the application of Article 136. He said that an application for special leave to appeal was rejected by the Supreme Court on the ground that it did not involve any substantial point of law. कितने परसेंट लिखी गई है? हाँ भाई दीपक तेरे से 65 तेरे से 75-80%। ये वर्ड थे 958, 48 सेकंड का बनाना। कितना होता है? 0.8 ये स्पीड थी 140 की, और जो है ये जितनी भी लिखी गई है, ये जैसे मतलब इसको क्या कहते हैं, 1-2 बार और प्रैक्टिस कर लेना है, जिससे मतलब क्या कहते हैं और थोड़ा जैसे आपका हाथ भाग पाए, फिर जिससे क्या कहते हैं जो अगली डिक्टेशन में बोलूँगा वो पूरी 100 की बोली जाएगी। एक बोलूँगा मैं जैसे आप लोगों को ज़्यादा स्पीड की, एक बोलूँगा मैं एग्जैक्ट स्पीड की, फिर जिससे मतलब क्या कहते हैं आप लोग आउटलाइन कितनी जल्दी पकड़ पाते हो, क्या करते हो, वो जैसे आउटपुट निकल के आएगी। नहीं तो आप लोगों को भी 80 में डाला जाएगा फिर, क्योंकि 100 का जैसे दिख नहीं रहा कुछ भी अब तक। तो एक स्पीड से बोली जाएगी, इसको आप जैसे सीन में भी कर लीजिए। अब अगली इसको टाइप भी करना है, फिर अगली जो मैं बोलूँगा वो बोलूँगा मैं 100 की, वो एग्जैक्ट 100 होगी। अगर उसमें आपकी एक्यूरेसी 90 नहीं आती है तो फिर आप 80 में तैयारी करोगे, ठीक है, क्योंकि टाइम कम है। इस क्लास के अंदर इतना। चलो नमस्कार।